To celebrate episode 150, we thought we'd go back where we began. The original PlayStation mascot, Crash Bandicoot, is back for a full deep dive review. From punishing platforming to pure 90s nostalgia, we're breaking down the game that helped build this show and the PlayStation brand. Does Crash still deserve the legendary status, or is it tougher than memory serves? It's time to go back to Insanity Beach one more time. Hello everybody and welcome to episode 150 of High Scores, High Stakes. We made it! We made it! Let's go!
Nobody asked us to leave. Great stuff.
I mean, plenty of people have asked us to leave. We just haven't listened to them because we're independent. Yo,
let's go! Huge episode. This is insane. Like, we've been kind of doing the prep and stuff for this in the background, and I think we've kind of took like the landmark for granted, because episode 1, big deal, started a podcast. Episode 50, oh look at that, we've got over the hump. Episode 100, I think we made the biggest deal for. Whereas I feel as if even episode 150, we're kind of just going, it's just another episode, guys.
Yeah,
welcome back.
Yeah, not many podcasts hit episode 150, but here we are, hanging on by our
We're
fingernails.
doing it for dear life.
Please listen to us. But yes, it is episode 150. But also, Tom, it is the last Monday of February 2026, and that means that it must be time for a monthly game review. And we
just is an easy one, isn't it? Like, so easy.
It's episode 150. It's a massive deal. Let's be honest here. It is
huge deal.
Huge. So we thought, why not go back to whence it all started, which it was, of course, our Crash Bandicoot Insanity Beach Speedrun Challenge. If you haven't watched it, I would suggest scrolling down those timelines and clicking on it.
Or wait for the remaster. I don't know.
It is High Scores, High Stakes baby mode. We had a bally what we were doing.
Oh, just hit record and hope for the best. That's it.
It is worth it. Just watch it. The gameplay is on like a postage stamp size tiny square and everything. But yes, we're back visiting Crash Bandicoot. Only this time we're not playing it. We are reviewing it. And the way we do this is really, really simple. We talk about the development of the game, and we deep dive the ever-living life out of the games we review. We look at everything: gameplay, graphics, sound design, level design, the whole heap. If you can critique it, that's what we do in these Game of the Month episodes. And if this is your first time listening and you don't know who we are, what we do, we are High Scores, High Stakes, the internet's only competitive PlayStation podcast, where myself, Tomahawk, and Cardinal Smith compete against one another in a PlayStation League table. And the last Monday of every month, we deep dive review a game. So tonight's game, Tomahawk, are you ready for this?
Always.
I was born ready to review Crash Bandicoot. Before we get into the actual review, let's talk about its development, because its development is really interesting. So as everyone knows, I do my due diligence and I do a lot of research on this, and usually my research revolves around watching like retrospective videos on YouTube, scouring the internet for any sort of like primary sources and all that sort of thing,
and all that good stuff and knowledge that slipped through the cracks. But this one, I don't think so. You're obviously going to fill in all the blanks here, but this one seems like flagship game for the PlayStation 1. Surely this one isn't riddled with problems. Like,
I know, right? It isn't, but it is kind of.
There's teething, no doubt. There's teething.
Yes,
system capabilities, all that kind of good stuff.
Yeah.
Look,
so any gaming historians out there, my research for this was so easy, it was crazy, because one of Crash Bandicoot's primary designers and founding person of Naughty Dog, Andy Gavin, was a blogger apparently at some point in time, and he has a website, and I'm going to direct you to that website right now because he details the inception, development, release, post-release of Crash Bandicoot in incredible detail, and his website is called allthingandygavin.com. Go check it out because it is ridiculously detailed. So all my research was done there because I scour the internet for primary sources sometimes, and it is ridiculously hard to find it. Andy Gavin has made it so easy and so informational. It is crazy the detail this blog goes into. Like, I spent hours and hours reading it and about 20 minutes making my notes and just reading the whole thing. So this is the abridged version for anyone who is interested in gaming history. Okay, so
should we put the full link in the show notes as well?
in the show notes, we'll put it in the description below, of course we will.
And
yeah,
if everyone wants to waste time reading that in the background, then do that, because I think I might do that as well. It sounds, if it's as in depth from the source, effectively, it's going to be good.
It's crazy. So if people don't know, Andy Gavin is a founding father of Naughty Dog from way back when. And he sort of thinged it. So this is all this information has come directly from Andy Gavin. So obviously Crash Bandicoot was a 1996 title for PlayStation. So it missed the release window in Europe and America and Japan 2 years from the release in Japan, 1 year after the release in Europe and the States. But he says that the whole idea for Crash Bandicoot came from 1993.
Okay.
1993 was obviously the big, massive boom of 3D gaming. And him and everyone else at Naughty Dog. Naughty Dog was a 2-person team at this stage of the game. They saw
Humble
3D
beginnings, like
yeah, they saw 3D gamings and were like, "Oh my goodness, isn't this incredible?" And they sort of started playing all these 3D games, Virtua Fighter, Ridge Racer, all this here business, and they quickly came to the conclusion that some genres of games benefited far more of 3D graphics than others. He specifically said racing games were the biggest beneficiary of 3D booms, and fighters were probably one of the worst off. He gives the example on his blog of Virtua Fighter, while technically incredible, did not play as well as Street Fighter 2, which is fair enough. So they came up. So they were driving cross country to go to Universal Studios for a meeting, a production meeting of what their next game was going to be. And on the way there, they were driving through the desert of California, and the idea sprung into their head of, nobody's made a 3D platformer. Can we do that?
Nah,
Yeah.
I suppose that makes,
Yeah.
Wow, actually, what a moment. Like, just a light bulb moment then.
Yeah, so the early days of 3D was all racing games and fighting games. That was really it.
They're arcade ports and that kind of stuff, really. That's without the Nexus, isn't it?
Yeah, but so they're like, no one's made a 3D platformer. Do you think we could? And they were like, well, there's only one way to find out. Let's pitch it when we're at Universal. And that's exactly what they did. So they pitched the game to Universal saying, look, we think we could make a 3D, they call it character platformer. Everyone else on the planet calls it mascot platformers. So they pitched an idea to Universal, and they called their pitch Sonic's Ass. Sonic's Ass. Imagine Sonic the Hedgehog, but the camera's behind him. Was basically it.
Oh, right. Okay. That makes
Universal were like, okay, draw up a prototype and demo and show it to us whenever you have it ready. So, yeah, 1994, work begins on Crash Bandicoot. So, obviously, in their design brief, there only is 2 of them. Like, I can't have to stress this. There only is 2 of them, and they're all of a sudden making a early 3D AAA platformer.
Wild.
Okay, so they have no publisher other than Universal. They have no artists, no animators. They're the only 2 programmers. They have to do everything themselves. So they start plotting out what is going to be easy and what's going to be hard here. So the first thing they were worried about was, how are you meant to play a platform game when your camera is behind the character? How can you make your character stand out when their silhouette is from only one direction behind? And then they were like, what are we even releasing this on? Because I don't know if anyone listening remembers 1993. I'm presuming so, because I see your analytics. But the early 90s were a wild west for hardware. Like, there was 3DO, there was the Atari Jaguar, there was the 32X, there was the Mega CD, there was the rumored Sony PlayStation. There was just consoles everywhere. So they started putting feelers out to all these different games companies like 3DO, all these companies going, we have an idea. what's your hardware specs and can we see it in action? So after seeing all these consoles in action and seeing the specs and stuff, they discounted the Saturn because they felt that it was just messy to develop for. They discounted the 3DO because they felt that it was underpowered. They discounted the Jaguar because it's the Jaguar. That's what I mean in his blog. That's what he says. And they obviously discounted the 32X because it wasn't a next gen console and wouldn't be able to do very much at all.
Anything,
so that left them with one choice, and that was the Sony PlayStation. So he describes it in a really funny way. He's like, we picked the Sony PlayStation because it was new, powerful, and sexy. And because another sort of factor for this was Sega had Sonic the Hedgehog, Nintendo had Mario, and they really didn't fancy trying to usurp these established
That's interesting.
mascots.
Yeah.
And they went with Sony, and like, Sony has nothing. So why not try to fill a gap for that? I can see that the business sense behind it is genius because there's no real competition. I mean, Flash?
It's a self-insert. Then you just basically pitch that to Sony and go, we're developing this game. Here's the character. Here's your mascot effectively. Like you described, their mascot platformer.
Yeah.
It writes itself, really.
Yeah.
I mean, in my head, you're going to tell me next that Sony said no, or Sony said
no. Sony
were pretty much on board for it. Yeah,
Sony were on board. They didn't have a character at this stage of the game. They just had an idea, and Sony were like, "Yeah, that's grand. You can have a development kit for the PlayStation, but it's going to cost you 35 grand is what they paid for it." So then they began work. They began storyboarding their brand new game, Willy the Wombat. Willy the Wombat.
I would play that somewhere in the multiverse. This is what we're reviewing.
Yeah, so Willy the Wombat starts off. So they wanted to make obviously a 3D platformer, but they were inspired by like obviously Sonic the Hedgehog and the cartoon, the Warner Brothers cartoon, Tasmania. Do you remember that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And they wanted to have a character, like a cute animal character, but it had to be an animal that no one knew too much about. So they bought like a book of like Australian marsupials and they narrowed it down to 3. It was either going to be a wombat, a potteroo, or a bandicoot. So that was the brief. So they hired an artist and just sort of said, we want this character to be cool and edgy and awesome and cute and relatable. And he was like, okay, and started drawing up all these Willy the Wombat sort of things. But what they basically did was give him a design brief. He sketched up really quick. They critiqued the life out of it. He then changed the design brief, and they just kept on doing this over and over and over again until they landed on a character that they liked the look of. And then this artist was like, do you want to know what? This looks more like a bandicoot than a wombat. So then it became, Willy the Bandicoot.
I've just sent you a picture here, just as you've described this, and I think I've found what is a storyboard of Willy the Wombat.
Yeah.
And I'm going to stick it up on the edit as well, and it looks horrific. So it's an egg with trainers and buck teeth.
Yeah. That's obviously come from his website because he had loads of like pre-production sketches and stuff. So they had a character now. So then they had to start thinking about, well, how's this character going to look in 3D? So all of the design of Crash Bandicoot as the character, so Willy the Bandicoot as it was called right now, everything was like a mix of artistry and sort of necessity. So they give him like the big exaggerated facial features just because TV resolutions was so low.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he had to stand out, then it had to look...
Everything had to be exaggerated in order to stand out so you can see it on a TV effectively. They coloured him orange for a really simple reason. They couldn't use blue or red because they were taken by Sonic and Mario. So they made him orange because it was available. And
Makes
that
sense.
is also why Crash Bandicoot does not have a single lava level because they were worried about clashing. Genius.
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
And that's a real penny drop moment there, actually. Yeah. That's
Crash
incredible.
Bandicoot in the original had gloves on. That's just because it meant there was less polygons they had to work with. And he has like little tan patch on his stomach. That is literally so the player knew at a glance what way the character was facing. So everything is just like meticulously worked out by Naughty Dog in order to maximize playability and just sort of the looks of the game. The animation for Crash Bandicoot and everything in its world was inspired by like Looney Tunes. they just wanted everything in this game to look cartoonish. So that's where all of the sort of death animations come from, the Crash Bandicoot idle animations. That's why the boxes kind of bounce in place and all their sort of business in it. And they quickly realized with all this sort of stuff going on that the PlayStation had real limitations. And then they were like, okay, so how do we fix these limitations? And that is where all the tricks that Naughty Dog have become synonymous with over the years. The first trick they did was, okay, the camera was pretty much free. You could turn it and you could see where you were going and stuff originally. And they're like, that's not going to work. Let's put the camera on reels. So let's make the camera trail the player with no player control. And then they started putting in...
that's why you can't go back in levels then?
Yeah.
That's genius. So it stops the backgrounds or whatever from having to refresh. It just forces you forward into the next. Amazing.
Yeah, it's genius. It's genius. That's why the levels all have big, massive hills. That's why all the levels curve around corners. That's why everything's in a tunnel. It's just because they only had the headroom hardware-wise to render Crash Bandicoot, the enemies, and just in the vicinity of the character. So they saved system headroom by not letting you see what was coming up next, because there was nothing until you were there. It just rendered little tiny bits of the level as you progress through it. It is absolutely genius. But what they found out was by doing all this, they could bump the resolution up. It's one of the very few games on PlayStation that uses the PlayStation's full resolution while looking amazing. Crash Bandicoot on the PlayStation 1 looks incredible. So it does. And the graphical fidelity that Crash Bandicoot hit in 1996 was unseen at the time of. And then, so everything was just designed around playability, saving technical headroom, not having to worry about system resources, just everything. But then they're Naughty Dog, and their big primary function here is to make the game fun. But the problem was they hadn't a clue how to make a platformer in 3D. They were learning as they were going. So what they did was they distilled, when they were prototyping it for Universal, they made the level in the labs that side scrolls.
Yeah.
That was the prototype level. This is our proof of concept. This is what we want. And Universal were like, yeah, this is great. Yeah, let's make this game. This is great. And basically that became, they made their own level design. Remember like Tomb Raider did, where they made their own level design tools? Naughty Dog did exactly the same thing here.
Okay.
Allowed like literal streaming of the level as you went through it. That was all their own work. And they realized very quickly that this probably isn't going to work in a fully open 3D world. So let's just make a 2D, 3D platformer. Inspired by, and this explains the difficulty to me, massively inspired by Donkey Kong Country.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, but then they still had the year is now 1995, and they have a game that's well under development. There's levels being made, enemies being made, their characters being made. They still don't have a name for this character, and they realized very quickly that the PlayStation could only render a certain amount of enemies on screen at a time, and it made the levels feel empty. So they added the crates and the Wumpa fruits, and they also added on Mark Cerny's recommendation. Actually, Mark Cerny said every platformer has an invincibility tool. The PlayStation has really good transparency effects, so just make a Sonic the Hedgehog style bubble for a shield. And they realize, well, we can't, because that's going to throw us over the memory threshold. So they created Aku
masks. Okay,
a low polygon, low system resource and shield. But it's 1995. They have a character, they have a game, they have all the stuff, they've no name. What do you call a character that breaks boxes? Crash.
Incredible.
Crash Bandicoot. And then they were tasked. Universal told them that they will not be publishing this game because Sony want it. Sony want to publish it. And that is how this game became Sony published, not Sony owned. And Sony were like, we need a demo for this for E3 in 1996. And they're like, yeah, no bother. That's perfect. This is going to be one of the world's first 3D mascot platformers. Let's go. You know what E3 1996 was, don't you know?
I was 5 years old, so
nothing really happened in it. It was really, really quiet. Just Nintendo showed off their Nintendo 64 alongside a little tiny game no one's ever heard of called Mario 64.
Oh, yeah, that indie title. That old chestnut.
Yeah, no one speedrun it or nothing like it. Yeah, it was the same year as that. And in his blog, he says that Mario 64 was like a double-edged sword for them. On one hand, it looked far more revolutionary than Crash Bandicoot did because it was sandboxy 3D open world. And he says it looked far more technologically advanced, which it did. But he also said that the graphics were a lot more like empty than Crash Bandicoots. And whilst it was like, okay, now we're being compared to the Super Mario game,
yeah,
but by the same token, every time a publication or a TV show compared Mario to Crash Bandicoot, it's free publicity for them. So
yeah, that makes sense actually.
So his blog does a great thing, because I remember at the time the general consensus was, well, Sony have seen Super Mario 64 and therefore they have told someone to make them a Super Mario 64. Not the case at all. If anything, Crash Bandicoot was in development before Super Mario 64, because 1993 was the year since Miyamoto was making Yoshi's Island. So this was actually in development long before Mario 64. But yeah, no, that was it. That is a development of it. It was fairly smooth.
It seems pretty smooth, and they've just come in with a plucky attitude, and they found a gap in the market and they just ran with it, even though that they seemed to be very under-resourced and under-experienced to do it.
Yeah,
they found a way, and it's when you say that they compromised, but through innovation with a lot of different resources, like that idea of like, we'll talk about how the gameplay sort of feeds nicely into the sort of gameplay aspect. Is I like to think of these games kind of run on like a treadmill.
Yeah.
And everything is like sort of procedure generated based on what is immediately in front of you. And I think that's that real penny drop moment, and just that comparison there to Mario 64. It's like Mario 64 has a lot going on in a lot of these levels, but there's a lot of gaps to get to those things going on in those big levels, whereas Crash is a lot smaller, but it's so packed with detail.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of like, yes, you're being compared to like this Nintendo juggernaut at this point, safe to say. And as you say, it's free publicity to them. They're being mentioned in the same breath nearly all the time.
Absolutely. They were being mentioned everywhere. PlayStation magazines, Nintendo magazines, independent magazines. They're being mentioned everywhere. But yeah, no, Crash Bandicoot then. Let's get into the review of Crash Bandicoot, okay? So Crash Bandicoot releases on the PlayStation 1 September the 9th, 1996. And it went on to sell an absolute whopping 6 million copies. It's been reviewed everywhere. Tomahawk, do you know where it hasn't been reviewed? High scores, high stakes.
We're a bit late to the party, but
let's fix that. Let's fix it right now by deep dive reviewing Crash Bandicoot. Okay, Tomahawk. Episode 1 of High Scores, High Stakes with Crash Bandicoot. And here we are, 3 years later, reviewing
Insane.
Let's talk about the first thing. The first thing I want to talk about here is, I know you... Have you ever played the original Crash Bandicoot? I know you talk about your dentist and stuff like that. So
I have. My uncle had a copy. My uncle had a PlayStation. My cousin had a PlayStation. My school friends had PlayStations and stuff. So I'm not entirely sure where I fell off the rails here with my gaming, my starting point of my gaming journey. But I have played Crash Bandicoot. I have at some point also owned a copy of the original Crash Bandicoot as well. So yeah, I'm very well versed in OG Crash at this point
that's
now.
Good. That's good. So I thought what we would do with this one, right, is we would kind of amalgamate and compare and contrast the original Crash Bandicoot with the Sane Trilogy remake, and just talk about both at the same time.
I think so.
There's like a world of difference between the two of them, but grand scheme of things, there really isn't that much difference.
No, it's the same. It's the same game at its core, really. One's just nice and shiny and cross-platform and everywhere now.
Yeah, yeah. So let's do it that way. Let's talk about the graphics though, because Crash Bandicoot, for my money, and I think I've said this before, it might have been season 1, episode 1. Crash Bandicoot, for my money, was and is a better looking game than Super Mario 64 was.
Oh, this is canon. This is the most canon thing I think we've ever said, or you've ever said, at least on the podcast. I think we talked about it just before in the last section there. It's very much like it's packed full of detail. It might not have this, like, it might not have had this financial backing that Nintendo were going to give Mario 64, but I think the limitations that they worked with, they've done so well. Like, I think even looking at that on PlayStation 1, I still think they've done an incredible job.
Yeah.
Yes, you can talk about like your sort of fog of war situation there and how that like renders the stuff as it comes through. But I think that's just, I think adds to the platform vibe that they're going for in it. That you don't want to be, like it kind of sells that as well. It's like you don't want to be having memorized everything because you can see it in the distance. You kind of want to be challenged and trialed and go through the tribulations and all that kind of good stuff as well.
Yeah. Every developer uses tricks in order to get their vision of the game onto our screens. Like I think of Super Mario 64. Super Mario 64, its skybox was completely envelopes the entire level, so the levels all felt like floating like islands,
effectively,
small islands. And the fact that the skybox was a big cube around the level just meant that all they had to render was the level and the characters themselves, whereas Crash Bandicoot just did that slightly different. And if we put a hill here, a big wall here, and make every level effectively a tunnel, then people can't see what's coming up ahead, and it means we don't have to render anything, and we can literally just kind of like stream it as people encounter it.
Yeah, because I still even remember playing OG Crash, and it's the first thing I always think of. It's always Insanity Beach, because it, your title card comes in, and this is kind of the first one. Maybe I'm having like a moment from how we play it on the remake and stuff as well, is when you hit start. Effectively, the game just starts, that the title card kind of disappears, the camera pans down, and then Crash is just washed up on the beach.
Yeah.
And then you're just let to go. There's no like this, again, we talk about like illusions in gameplay and stuff, and this has no illusion that there's even a load screen. You're just kind of, the game starts and is held behind a press X to continue kind of button.
No, Crash Bandicoot 1 loaded. There was loading in it. You had to. I can't remember how.
This is where I'm bleeding into like the remake then, because this is definitely like you start the game, it then just kind of goes Crash. There he's on the beach. Oh look, we're in the game. Crack on.
You definitely had a loading screen, a now loading screen with a Wampa crate.
It's just the wee box. Yeah.
Would just play.
You can only do that much, or we'll get sued.
Yeah. Yeah, so there was definitely loading in the original version, but I think when you said you always think of Insanity Beach when you think of Crash Bandicoot, the level I always think of when I think of Crash Bandicoot on the original PlayStation, I think it's called Upstream. I think that's what the level's called, but it's the one where you're going up the waterfall, so you have to jump on like piranha plants and logs and all this here
lily
business.
Pads and fish are flying and stuff at you and stuff as well. Yes,
the reason it's that level, I think, is because in the official PlayStation magazine, they had like a 3-level demo for Crash Bandicoot just before it released, and one of them was Insanity Beach, and the next one was that one. And I remember being a kid and that level blowing my mind, because the water transparency effect in that level was just wild to me. I was like, well, look at this. It looks like, I remember calling from my dad, Dad, look, come see this. This water looks real. Of course it doesn't. But as a kid, it blew my mind just how beautiful the game Crash Bandicoot is. It is stunning looking. Like the enemies all animated so beautifully well, and we have the big rolling balls that come in from side to side, and Crash Bandicoot,
like it's a physical sort of delight in terms of like animations. Everything's so smooth. Like even now playing back, nothing feels clunky. It doesn't feel dated. It still feels like it is a core, like and it's like a cornerstone for like what modern gaming sort of became because of Crash. And I think like we would take it down to sort of the gameplay more so at this point. like it's just so ahead of its time, but because there was just this gap in the market, they've just kind of took and run with it. Like, but even when you start that first level, it's like so good, man. I'm like, the first thing you try and do is just barrel straight in, and then the first thing you do is you hit the lizard or the iguana thing that's like patrolling the track, and then you instantly die.
Yes.
And I think I can kind of tell when they make these games, it feels like they're throwing back slightly to like, like Lion King and Aladdin. They wanted to make these games like challenging, that you couldn't just tank them in a weekend.
Absolutely. In the blog, he talks about, when they saw Mario 64, they were like, oh no. He talks about a few three like platformers that were terrible, and he's like, this is Mario, this is going to be amazing. And he says he was worried about it, but then he says it was far more revolutionary, but Crash Bandicoot was far more traditional. And you said there it was ahead of its time. I really don't think Crash Bandicoot was ahead of its time. If anything, I think Crash Bandicoot is like of its time. Like, this wasn't trying to rewrite the rule book of what a platformer was. It just took games like Aladdin. It's funny you said about the Lion King. The Lion King has a level on it. I think it's Mufasa's Death, I think it's called, where you're running towards the screen, you're getting chased by the wildebeest. That is the prototype for Crash Bandicoot's like
Boulder
Dash chases and stuff like that. It just Naughty Dog did something incredibly intelligent with Crash Bandicoot. Is they obviously studied character platformers, as they call it, mascot platformers, and went, this works. This makes a good game better. This doesn't work. And they sort of skinned off all the stuff that didn't work. So there was like no overly complex platforming sort of animations. They kept it really basic, but they added in so many like mechanics and the differing viewpoints and all this here business. And it's an intelligently designed game, but he in his blog, he says Crash Bandicoot or Mario felt far more revolutionary than Crash Bandicoot because it was. But Crash Bandicoot was like the evolution of like Earthworm Jim, your
what
Disney
we had
games,
at that time,
now in like 3D, and it's a great way of designing a game. This works, this doesn't work. Let's not try to rewrite the rule book. Let's just take what works and ditch what doesn't work, and make like a great game. And that's exactly what Crash Bandicoot is. Crash Bandicoot is just such a great and incredibly well-designed game, and you can tell that it has that now signature Naughty Dog thoughtfulness behind it, of just everything is designed for purpose. There's nothing in Crash Bandicoot that's not there for a purpose.
Everything is there for a reason. There's no wasted space in the game. Like, and I think even like talking about sort of the gameplay side of things as well. You talked earlier about how it's like on a treadmill, or it's like just on a path, camera behind you as well. They on the sort of trackway then as well. They do it in like so many different ways, because the first level you've got Insanity Beach, it's got that section with the cameras behind you. Then it's a vertical ascension. Then you've got other side levels that are effectively a 2D platformer in a 3D within a 3D space, and then you've got like your boulder level, which is everything chasing at you as well. That you've got the camera running towards you.
Yeah, you're running towards
like
the camera.
They do so much, but I think as you say, they just have took every element of what we had as platformers in every aspect in the 2D space, and they've elevated it in a 3D space. And I think even like you take that sort of gameplay and they've just elevated it, and then they take that graphics and they've just elevated it, because they could have easily just had like Crash as an avatar, however they have him animated. But what they've done, I remember this really, really cleverly, Crash has like loads of different emotions and loads of different, and a good emotional range for a little polygon blob. He's an incredible looking character, and he's an incredibly
emotive
character. Crash is an emotive character. That is not something I thought I would say.
but he is like, I sort of mentioned it in the development of it. They wanted it to look like a cartoon, like a Looney. He specifically mentions Looney Tunes, like a really good Disney movie or a Looney Tunes cartoon, and they were really like prescient of how they were going to do that. And clearly, one of the things was how Crash moves. So Crash's running animation is, by modern standards, really, really stiff. But when you take your hands off the controller, his idle animation is incredible. He will turn
riddled
around,
with
look at the
ADHD
camera,
because you'll
and
like
then go.
it's kind of what do you know what? It's basically what Astrobot is today. Astrobot can't sit still. Astrobot has to like turn and look at the camera and give Astrobot a wee wave, and then he sits and plays on his PSP. Whereas Crash sat there, kind of like taps the legs, turns around, then does the, I'm not going to do the dance, but does the little shuffle.
Yeah, well, he didn't do that in the original game. So he does it in the remake. His idle animation was he would turn around, look at the camera, and then shrug with his hands out. He's like, "Come on, here, what you doing?"
Very fourth wall, isn't it?
So yeah, that dance in the original version was when you completed a level and got every crate. He would do the little Crash Bandicoot dance.
Oh, sorry. Yes. That is right. He would. It was. It's just that it's that little shuffle he does with the hands, and then he like turns back and goes, "Hey."
Yes, yes, and that's a really good point. But he has all these death animations. So if he gets killed by crushing, his character model will flatten, and it's just his feet sticking out the side, and he would walk around like Martin the Martian. I think is the best way to describe it. If he gets eaten by a plant, then he'll be an angel and fly up playing the harp.
Oh,
and there's
the
water animation. If he falls into water, he'll fly into the water.
It's
and
the bottomless pit ones as well, where the shoes fly up. Was just about to say, even like where the body leaves him and his eyes kind of follow after, like very Looney Tunes style as well. So, like graphically, gameplay, like all these wee like enunciations of like what Crash can do and what the world can do to Crash is like, it's a huge testament. And I think like it has, we say about how it hasn't really aged. And I think it's how they designed the character as well. You know, the big cartoon features, the big sort of bug eyes, the big bulging kind of eyes as well. And the way even Crash moves as well. It's so pantomime nearly as well. The best way I can describe it is, have you seen how Wesker runs in Dead by Daylight? The kind of big swooping arm. That's exactly how Crash runs. It feels like he needs to run faster than, or it gives that implication that he's running faster than what he actually is.
Yeah. There's just so many like great touches in Crash Bandicoot graphically. Like as you said, like the levels are so incredibly well detailed. Like it's just everything in Crash Bandicoot looks beautiful. Like the transparency, the animation of Crash Bandicoot himself. It's really easy to forget at the end of the level. He's just getting battered by boxes as it counts how many boxes
he missed,
destroyed and stuff. It's just him getting battered. If you don't get them all, he'll just be flat in the ground.
And then the boxes just keep hammering on top. Yeah, like I mean, he doesn't get an easy ride anyway, Crash. But I tell you what, man, the animators have put a shift in for him alone. Look.
Absolutely.
Because the enemies follow predetermined paths, so they follow like an attack animation or however. Some of them, like the Shield, the sort of Zulu warriors, they have a kind of attack pattern, but they also have like a sentry mode effectively as well. But Crash has like, for the time being released, has such a wide range of movements, idle movements, patterns and reactions and stuff as well.
Yeah, his moveset is really limited in Crash Bandicoot 1. It's basically a hop, a jump, and a spin. That's really his moveset, but it works so well. So let's get on to the design of it, because you've kind of mentioned design, I've kind of mentioned design. The sort of, obviously because this was Donkey Kong Country inspired. Donkey Kong Country, for those who are unaware, brutally hard platformer from the Super Nintendo. They had to make a challenge in a load of different ways in Crash Bandicoot. And one of the big ways they did it was by constantly challenging the player personally. So some levels, as you've mentioned, are you running, the majority of levels are you running into the level. Sometimes you're running into the camera away from the level, so you don't know what's coming up next. Other times there's side scroll, like hardcore side scrolling platforming. And then there's those levels like I think it's called the labs, where the camera is kind of above you and it's looking down, and it's
it's like very bird's eye moments.
Yeah, so they use the camera in a load of different ways in order to challenge your ability. Once they think, okay, you should have this mastered now, let's throw something else at you. And in the levels themselves, every level has like a real progression of difficulty where they'll throw a new enemy in one level and you'll have to sort of how do I take that enemy out. And then there's like the levels go from just jumps that are going to kill you to like there's crushing platforms, there's spinning platforms, there's platforms that will fold into the level, and all these things are built. I've said this before in this podcast, I'm certain I have, where Nintendo are the masters of using in-game mechanics as your tutorial. They never explain to you what to do. You just intuitively know what to do. Crash Bandicoot takes that design philosophy and runs with it because it teaches you new mechanics through gameplay. They don't want to tell you, if you want to do this, you have to go here.
There isn't like a floating walking tutorial in Crash. It's very much just, oh, I died here. Maybe I can like jump and spin. It was very much just figure it out and find. Yeah, you'll be all right, kid.
yeah, and that's how level design works in Crash Bandicoot. Now, there's loads and loads of different, like, I hate using the word, but it's the parlance of the time, as was the fashion of the time, biomes. The biomes in Crash Bandicoot 1 aren't very varied. So correct me if I'm wrong. You basically have jungle levels, and then you have like stone fortresses.
Yeah.
And then you have like wooden fortresses.
Effectively, yeah. Like it's castles and a lot of for those like Zulu enemies and stuff, it's like wooden pallets and platform, and wooden
circular logs with spikes on top and things like that. And then there's lab levels, and then there are bridge levels. The bridge levels.
We're not talking about the bridge levels, but yeah, the lab, like the industrial kind of looks and stuff as well. Like as you get sort of further, but that's how the if I remember how the game HUD is done, it's like a spiral. Like your level design is like in a spiral, effectively, and you're getting to Cortex's lab at the very top. So as you kind of go through the mill, like the biomes, I'm saying it now, change according to where you are on the island or how high up in the ascent you are as such.
Yeah, so there's, if my memory serves me right, there's 4 different islands, and you're basically waking your way up to the top of a mountain on each island in order to fight the boss. Boss fights. Let's talk boss fights. I've said it before, and I'm saying it again. This is canon. This is as canon as I am. Naughty Dog are not very good at boss fights. And Crash Bandicoot 1 is no different. The boss fights are either insultingly easy or insultingly boring.
Yes. Given there are some levels I want to talk about in terms of difficulty, and this is maybe like difficulty 100%ing or difficulty just by finishing them. Tiny is probably one of the most dullest. Great design, great villain design. Very, very boring as a boss fight.
I can't remember the Tiny fight in Crash Bandicoot 1.
He is on. It's the gladiator.
That's Crash Bandicoot 3.
Oh, it's Crash Bandicoot 3.
Yeah, Crash Bandicoot 1 had, I can't remember what he's called, the fat guy who just stands in the middle of the arena and spins his stick. He's like a insultingly cartoonish native guy, big heavy guy. I think it's like Apu or something he's called.
Something like that, yes.
And then there's Ripperoo. Ripperoo's boss fight is he hops around 9 different square platforms around a waterfall, dropping explosive crates into the water, and you have to time your spin on those in order to make him explode beside him. And then there's obviously Dr. Neo Cortex. They're all insulting. They're dull.
Papu.
Sorry, Papu.
Yeah.
They are so boring, and they're not like ill designed. They're just not very compelling from a gameplay perspective. The boss fights, and there are 5 of them in the game, are the worst designed elements of Crash Bandicoot. They are easy, dull, and just look how forgetful they are. We can't even remember the boss names, and they are iconic video game characters.
No,
they're just
that's it. Good. They're very much just like run, like it's a little run-of-the-mill enemy. Nearly, you just have to bop them on the head 3 times, effectively, like all good,
Every single one.
good platformers.
Yeah.
Like all good platformers, that is the tried and tested method for beating the big bad. But the reward isn't in beating the big bad; it's going through the trials of all of the difficult levels.
Yeah,
subsequently,
that's one way of looking at it. I think the boss fights are the simplicity of them and the lack of real challenge in them is kind of your reward for making your way through the island. You've made it through the island and they want to put a hard roadblock and you progress into the next one is kind of how you could spin that, I think. But yeah, no, the Naughty Dog have never been good with bosses. Never. And Crash Bandicoot has rough bosses. Really rough. But they're only a tiny section of the game. Another thing we have to talk about is the chase levels. Now, I have a list of my favorite levels in this, and to be honest, one of them is boulders, which is
I do like the boulders one.
Yeah, by the boulders.
But it's such a tried and tested level. It's such an iconic level. Sure, it's iconic enough that even in Uncharted 4, they had to throw it back to that level as well. So it's it's up there. It is properly up there, but it's one that just throws you kind of for a loop because you've spent all your time running away from the camera and parallel to the camera and stuff like that. So this is the first time that you're actually having to go, oh no, I have to now do everything in reverse effectively.
Yeah, and you're under real pressure because those boulders move fast in this level. I know some people really hate these levels because you can't see what's coming up, and we haven't really mentioned it yet, but Vicarious Visions kind of made these levels better in the remake by just giving you that a little bit more vision of what was coming up. Because Crash Bandicoot, if you haven't played the original, Crash Bandicoot is very, very, very close to the camera in the original. And it gives you very seconds to react.
Yeah, there's no room for error in this one, whereas the remake is a little bit more forgiving. With hitboxes, we'll say.
Yeah, it's Crash Bandicoot's placement. He's a little bit further away from the camera. Just gives you that extra second or two to react to what's coming up in front of you. They are very, very, they're not easy, but they're easier definitely in the remake. And then you have the levels like Hog Wild, where you're riding an animal, you have no control of your momentum. All you have is control over when you jump and your direction and stuff. I hate that level. I hate those levels.
The chase levels, we get more of them towards Crash 3, if memory serves. But
2 has a good few of them, and 3 has 2, I think. Because Crash Bandicoot 2 is probably most famous for the chase levels because of the polar bear. There's 2 or 3 of them.
Yes.
And then Crash Bandicoot 3 has the dinosaur one.
Dino Dash, in Crash, or Dynamite in Crash 3,
but yeah, no, I don't really. I like the chase levels. I like them a lot. I think they're fun and they're different. I'm not a big fan of the auto-scrolling levels where you're on a hog in Crash Bandicoot 1. Hog Wild is like the 5th or 6th level, I think, in Crash Bandicoot, and it is a hard sticking point because there's certain parts of that level where you have to be perfect, otherwise you're not getting past it. Like, it's a lot more forgiving in the Sane Trilogy remake, like a lot of these things are.
I think it's like, we talk hitboxes, it's like if you're within like barely half a shoulder's width, that game is a dead stop. Crash gets launched off, and there's no soft like checkpoints in these ones. These are in any of these chase levels. In fact, it is a hard reset back to the start of the level 9 times out of 10. I think for the boulder ones where they are broken up into like 2 or 3 sections or chased by 2 different boulders.
Yeah.
But a lot of like the animal based ones are. Yeah,
I think you're right.
It's one shot or nothing.
Yeah. It's extremely. The original version is extremely difficult. Vicarious Visions. Let's talk a little bit about the remakes. Actually, Vicarious Visions did a lot of sanding around the rough edges of Crash Bandicoot. You've talked about hitboxes once or twice. They rounded the edges of the hitboxes to make them a lot more forgiving. Now, it had the side effect of Crash Bandicoot becoming a bit more slippery than what he originally was. So you can slip off the edge of.
We did know we've talked about that in episode 50 because we obviously do all these speedrun challenges with the Crash remake. And I think we've all said this at one point or another. It feels like Crash is on ice even when he's not. He doesn't feel firmly rooted to the ground. He always has this like little pixel or two of a glide when you come to a stop.
Yeah.
So he's a bit loose on his feet. Yeah.
Yeah, it is all designed around making it more forgiving a game, but it was an unfortunate side effect. I think they were able to patch a lot of it out. I don't think it's as bad now as what it was when it released. Not that it was bad when it released, but no, the Vicarious Visions remakes are amazing. And like, I think Crash Bandicoot 1 in the remake was the biggest beneficiary of the remake because they added in all of his extra moves like the slide and all that there business.
Oh, yeah,
There was
yeah.
just a lot more to it. It was just a far more rounded experience. It brought it up to the sort of Crash Bandicoot 2 sort of
You sort of
standard.
expect on it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
it looked amazing. Can I just say that? Like, it's a testament to the great design of Crash Bandicoot by Naughty Dog that what was 2017 was the remix. Am I right in saying that?
I think so.
2017,
Yes, it was released 2017.
which was 21 years after it originally released, and Crash Bandicoot is just a timeless character design. And Neo Cortex, and we haven't mentioned him yet. Let's talk about we've talked about the gameplay. We've talked about a lot about the gameplay. The gameplay in this is rock solid, rock hard, hardcore, traditional platforming. I think is the best way to describe Crash Bandicoot.
Absolutely.
It will beat you round the head, and it will expect you to get good at this game in order to progress it. It does not give anything away for free at all.
Yeah.
It
No
is
hand holding whatsoever.
brutal, especially if you're going for the relics. If you're going for the relics, Crash Bandicoot is going to give you nightmares. But but there's just so much to like about everything here, and the fact that Vicarious Visions were able to remake it 21 years later and it would still be as good as what it was, like if that makes sense.
Oh yeah, they haven't compromised or like took anything away. I feel like they've just enhanced what we had and made the gameplay loop just a little bit smoother, but equally as like unforgiving in the Vicarious remakes. I still remember Road to Nowhere being just a slog, and I'm playing this as a fully grown adult with like a full comprehension of how these games work and worked, and I still am struggling. So like they never compromised for anybody in the gameplay loop as such.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The bridge let's talk about the bridge levels. Let's talk about the bridge levels. All right, so there's two of them. There was the high road and the bridge to nowhere. Now, the bridge to nowhere is notorious for being one of the hardest levels ever put into a video game, and it is
Tough.
relentlessly hard from the very beginning of it. It is relentlessly hard. Now, in the original Crash Bandicoot, you could just hop onto the rope at the side and just run it fairly easily. The hitbox changes that Vicarious Visions made it a lot more difficult because the hitboxes were rounded on the edges, and if you were a millimeter off, you're slipping to your death. What people don't typically talk about with the bridge levels is because they're so difficult, people tend to take them slowly. They're not designed for slow progress. They are designed, everything's on a global timer in these levels, and it's one of the very few levels, I think, where the global timer is for everything. Whereas in some levels, some things are on the global timer, some things aren't.
Right,
and
okay.
I think this level, the bridge levels are designed to be taken quickly. Get in sync with the global timer, so you can hop over a lot of those using the warthog enemies and the crates and stuff. I think that's how these levels are designed. I can see the vision. Did they succeed? I don't know. I think they're probably too difficult.
It's funny you say that, but like I can't imagine living in a world where people play a Crash Bandicoot level and try and be methodical about it. I've never once in any of the history of any platformers, let alone Crash Bandicoot, I've never once thought, I've looked at the level and went, well, if I do X, Y, and Z, I just go, my brain will think before my thumbs do, if that makes sense.
You have to think about Crash Bandicoot's levels.
Don't. You just do. You will just instinctively do everything as it happens. And
wow,
if you die, I turns out I might be an absolute lunatic when it comes to playing these games, but I've genuinely just gone to every level and went, if I die, I die. I'll know what not to do there.
Okay.
But 9 times out of 10, if I'm just doing it, like say as a golden path, we'll not talk about relics or anything like that in some of these instances, I will just bum rush these levels and my brain will just instinctively know what to do, and my thumbs will play catch up.
Fair enough. Yeah, that's insane. That is insane. No, right. Let's talk about some of these levels that you just willy nilly
Just do, yeah.
just do it. Okay, Sunset Vista. These are some of my favorite levels. I've already talked about Boulders. Boulders is brilliant. Sunset Vista is the hardest level in the game, in the original version, not the remake. But Sunset Vista is the level that takes place in one of those wooden fortresses levels where you have to make your way across blocks that push you off the edge of the level.
Yeah,
and then
this is one of those traditional 2D ones, but with 3D elements and stuff.
You have to climb up the fortress using platforms that go up and down. If you stand them too long, they fold, and then you have to keep on going. But this one introduces fire pits, so if you fall off when you're going to a fire pit, you die, and you're thrown back to the checkpoint. And then you get to the top of the level, and there's like all these like platforms that slide in and out of the level, and there's like these flying lizards there, and it's just there's bats flying, and there's just so much going on. Sunset Vista is a deadly level, and there's no way you can complete Sunset Vista without thinking about what you have to do next. No way of it.
Oh no, I never said you have to. It helps to think. I just don't. Sometimes, like I see I have like a. What's that Bradley Cooper film where he's
Focus,
where he's unbreakable or whatever it's called? Yeah, he just like has these moments of clarity. Let me know in the comments what that film is, because it's going to bug me. But I very much go full Bradley Cooper, and I just see the whole level as it unfolds. And I think, as you're right, everything's just on I just maybe get synced with how the level beats are, if that makes sense. And I just go, right, jump, 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 pivot, jump, like spin, 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 slide, spin, double jump, like all that good stuff. I'm watching the gameplay right now of Sunset Vista, and even the how this level is done, he's very it's nearly needlessly cautious. I think
it's a really hard game.
Oh, it is. Level. It's such a hard level. I remember this. Not fondly, but I remember it.
It looks beautiful. The sunset, the way they did the lighting engine, even on the original version, just looks incredible. It's a beautiful level. Another level, I said that was it's the hardest level in the original version, but not the remake, and that is because when making the original, Naughty Dog had a level. Let me get the title of it. I can't really remember, but it's the one you're climbing the stone fortress in the rain, and they were like, "Oh, this might be too hard." Stormy Ascent.
Oh God! I hated Stormy Ascent.
They thought that it was too hard a level, so they didn't remove it from the game. They just hid it inside the game file. So back in the day, you could play this game with a Game Shark or an action replay. You could do it with one of those. But in the remake, Vicarious Visions, if memory serves me right, added it about 2 or 3 months after the release as a free DLC, and it is a superb level. It is brutally hard because it is raining, and that makes the stones slippery, and it is exceptionally long, and there are stairs that are there, and then they fold and make a slide to your death. It is hard.
This was one that was like Neo Cortex's lab, and there was a blimp adjacent to it. This was like an add-on at the end, and you've got the scientists throwing vials and stuff at you, so Crash will dissolve as well if he gets hit by poison or whatever it is. This one is intense.
Yeah, it's a great level. Like this and Sunset Vista are probably two of my favorite levels, and then my other really fond level is one called Slippery Climb. It's effectively the same thing. So it is as
I see it. It is very much here is a castle outside at nighttime.
Climb it. This one's
please.
This one sort of, you have to jump on blocks to turn wooden platforms on their side, and they're timed, and they'll go straight back up.
You have the spin ones as well to switch them. I tell you what, though, when it comes to like the actual, like, because obviously we got Crash 2, Crash Warped, and then subsequently on the PS4 we got Crash 4. You can't half tell whenever they get this additional budgets and the limitations are kind of like lifted as such, or addressed, or do whatever they're able to do. They're able to address these biome cut and paste looks effectively, because we've got Crash Warped, one of my personal favorites in the entire series. It has so many, like a big wealth of different like levels and designs and settings and stuff like that as well. So it's like underwater levels, you've got the roadside races, you've got the Arabian levels, you've got the future levels, you've got like desert levels. There's so much diversity in that, and I think that obviously came with like tried and tested, and the games were loved and adored, and Sony just couldn't get enough of them, basically.
I mean, it sold near 7 million copies, so Sony were always going to ask for a sequel or two. But yeah, no, what about you? What's your favorite sort of levels in Crash Bandicoot 1?
One, I think, it's always going to be Insanity Beach. I think Insanity Beach just like, I kind of, it's so iconic, and I think I'm going to treat this partly as the in-depth of the game itself, because this is the first kind of, here's what you're getting yourself into. We'll teach you a few of the runs, the jumps, the slides. Oh, look, you're going to do a vertical ascent. You're also going to do the mechanics of the boxes, that you have to spin the metal box to get all the boxes. There's a lot packed into that first level that players maybe don't really realize will be needed in several levels time. And of course, it was the reason that High Scores, High Stakes exists. That it will always be a fond memory in that regard. Like, so I think that if we're going to, I quite like the app. Did I say it was Apu Apu, that boss? I quite like his level. Papu Papu. I quite like his boss, to be honest. I think it's just fun. It's a little bit goofy.
It is goofy. All of them are really goofy. Like,
don't get hit by the swords, and just spin attack them. I do like, as much as I gripe about it, I do like Road to Nowhere. It's fiendishly difficult.
Really well designed, though.
It's really well designed, and I just have a really good appreciation for it now in my sage years.
It's a great design level. It really is
so punishing, but it's so rewarding. Even now, when I'm like, I should not ever go back to that level, I'm like, nope, don't let it defeat you. Don't let it defeat you.
Yeah, I think, grand scheme of things, I can't remember how many levels are in Crash Bandicoot. I want to say it's like 50 levels, I think. There's not many stinkers in there. I think the animal levels, when you're riding the animal through the level, are definitely the weakest. That and the bosses are the weakest links in the chain for me. But no, there's fun to be had all over.
26 playable levels and 6 boss encounters.
Okay, wow, that is a lot less than I thought.
So
it feels like
32. Oh no, which includes 6, so 26.
Oh wow, it feels a lot more than that.
It does feel a lot more. I think when you
it's a lot of game.
Well, probably when you take into account like the little bonus side bits where you have to then go and if you're on your box hunts, they are very much required. Those little it's the question mark platforms, isn't it? That take you to like the secret bonus levels.
3 medallions, and then you jump on the question mark platform, and it takes you to the bonus level, which I forgot about. The bonus levels are actually really good. All they are is just destruction. Destroy as many boxes as you can.
But they're required for the perfectionist.
Full completionist and the true ending, of course. Which brings us on lovely. We haven't actually talked about the storyline of Crash Bandicoot. It's nothing to write home about.
There isn't one, surely.
There really isn't. It's your traditional like platformer story. There's a bad guy who wants to take over the world, and it's your job to stop him because your girlfriend has been kidnapped.
I feel as if Crash just kind of like falls into this. I don't feel as if Crash like isn't heavily involved in the story. He just appears and kind of just does it.
Yeah,
I think the story element, or like how we're going to tangibly make Crash work in the story, I think that kind of only really happens in the remake. Because if I remember correctly, in the remake, he's strapped to a table like Bond style.
No,
and Cortex is trying to shoot him with a laser, and then he escapes, and then that's how Insanity Beach starts.
Yeah, that's that. Yeah, that's canon from the original. He is a genetically modified Bandicoot by Neo Cortex, who escapes and tries to foil. That's why all the bosses, apart from one, are all animals. He's Dr. Robotnik.
They're all like these games don't need a story. They just have to be.
It's story in inverted comma. There's no story in Crash Bandicoot. Yeah. Although I will say Dr. Neo Cortex is fantastic in this game.
His voice acting is incredible. It's in remake and original.
Yeah. He's just a fantastic enemy. He just looks so goofy. It's like your traditional, like, Pinky and the Brain he looks like the Brain from Pinky and the Brain if Pinky was a human. And he's just
that's really good, actually. Yeah,
your typical crazy scientist guy. He just doing things for the sake of doing things. Yeah, there's no real story here. Like, we haven't talked about the music. Now, I have
iconic.
I have withheld. I have withheld the music about how they developed the music. All right. So they spent so long getting all these levels to work and all these mechanics working that Sony were like, okay, that looks great. Where's the music? And they're like, oh no, we haven't got music. So they made that music like that. The turnaround time was crazy, and it was originally meant to be placeholder. But the feedback they got from E3 was, we need to keep this and we need to expand on it, but it was done super quick.
It's like wooden sort of xylophone-y type. That's the way I can kind of bongos and stuff like that. It's very jungle music, if that's the best way to describe it.
Yeah, cartoon jungle. There's like a lot of like percussion, like hollow percussion noises, xylophones and stuff. I couldn't believe it when they said this was done at a clip. But they just sort of had to throw some music in there and just came up with this idea for the music and just sort of ran with it. And it's iconic now. The Crash Bandicoot theme tune is iconic. And it's just fantastic. But that's really it for Crash Bandicoot. Unless I've missed something you want to talk about, mate?
I think if we are basing this purely on just Crash Bandicoot 1, I think we have hit everything on the head. Obviously, just as a little addendum, if we are going to talk about like Crash Insane Trilogy, we probably will as a future game of the month talk about Crash 2, Crash 3.
Definitely.
Probably never Crash 4. I don't think I've never played it.
No, nor have I.
I own it. I never no intention of playing it. I do like some of the other levels. Obviously, as the game evolves and stuff, you got like Warped, particularly is a great example for how with all the animal levels. I think were slightly more refined and better refined in
100%
in Part 3. The Great Wall of China is one that calls out to me.
Yeah, no,
it was the one I wanted just to highlight. And then is it the hog? Where is it? You are racing on like Route 66 or something like that.
Oh yeah. I can't remember that level's called, but I know exactly. What you mean.
They're the two ones I kind of wanted to point out as well. But they're just like the evolution of Crash, and the fact that we got 3 games on one system, and they managed to like push that console further and further. With by the time we got to Crash 3, it is insane.
The development time for them was crazy. I think they were like 96, 97, 98, I think. And then
like
you had
11-month turnaround
Crash Team Racing 1999 as well. We got 4 Crash Bandicoot games in the original PlayStation.
Could you imagine now if they went, it's going to take us 6 years to do another game?
Yeah.
Naughty Dog would never have existed long enough to get The Last of Us.
That's it.
If they decided that. No, I think that's everything on the head. Like the music is so iconic. So to know that is actually just done as placeholder music. I thought you were going to say it was like, public domain music or free. I thought you were going to say it was something like that. They just plucked it from a drawer.
No, they just literally just plucked it out of midair. Yeah. And threw
That's
it on
incredible.
The game originally just for the demo for E3, but they really enjoyed the vibe and thought it really added to the game.
And they just built on it. Then really, that's awesome. That is really really cool.
There's not many different tunes in Crash Bandicoot 1, the original version. If you play it, it's there's a lot of recurring themes and motifs, but no, it all
All
sounds
stems from
great.
the same
Even the
thing, yeah.
sound effects are iconic in this game. The design that Naughty Dog did with Crash Bandicoot 1 is just incredible. The look of it is incredible. The way it sounds is just spectacular. And they said they wanted to capture like good quality animation style from like Disney or Looney Tunes,
Yeah.
and they knocked it clean out of the park with Crash Bandicoot 1. The only difficulty is we now have to place it on the high scores, high stakes tier. How are we reviewing this? Okay, so for new listeners, our tiers are S tier, which is a masterpiece; A tier, which is a great game; B tier, which is a good game; C tier, which is an average game; and D tier, which is below average. That is, we need to place this somewhere. And this one's particularly difficult because we're taking Crash Bandicoot 1 and only 1, and we know what comes next. We know Crash Bandicoot 1 isn't the best of the trilogy, but
In
it's
isolation,
not
we have to
fair
grade. Yeah.
to measure a game based on its sequels. So where are you putting Crash Bandicoot on the high scores, high stakes tier list? Is it going to be S tier, A tier, B tier, or D tier?
I'm gonna go. I'm gonna do the approach I have with every Crash Bandicoot level. I'm gonna go brain first, thumbs later. I'm gonna go Crash Bandicoot. I'm gonna do this in 2 gradings. Actually, I'm gonna go Insane Trilogy. And I'm gonna go Crash Bandicoot OG. Insane Trilogy A tier, Crash Bandicoot S tier.
Oh wow! I would give. Okay, that's crazy. That's fast. So S tier for then the
OG.
remake.
For the
For
S tier. ST for the OG, A tier for the remake. I think that there's a few caveats. I think we've kind of talked about some of we've talked about it in great length in episode 1 and episode 50 about what we don't particularly like about the remake. Not to say that there's a bad remake, but it's a great remake. I just think that you seldom can beat the original.
Yeah, I am going to place both of them A tier.
Oh wow!
I'll tell you why.
Okay,
I think both games are great, and I think either version is worth a play in 2026. I think both of them have issues. And my biggest sticking point with Crash Bandicoot is the animal riding levels. I hate them, and I hate the bosses. I really do. And it's not the remake's fault that these things are in the game. And do they destroy the game's quality? Absolutely not. They give a game a lot of charm, but I just think, I just don't know if the original Crash Bandicoot's an S tier game. I think it's it's a great game. It's
like an A plus.
It's a high A tier. And yeah, the remake introduces sort of new-ish, like minor issues, but while taking everything that worked to the original. But yeah, I think they're both, I think A tier. And like, it took me a long time when I was sort of coming to my notes and stuff of where to put this. I had it originally on S tier, both of them. And I was like, is it though? Because my fondest memories of Crash Bandicoot come from Crash Bandicoot 2. Cortex Strikes Back. And who knows? There might
but
be.
You've graded it then based on its sequels.
No, but I haven't though.
Yeah.
I think if I give it an S tier when it comes around to Crash Bandicoot 2, it's also going to be an S tier.
And then 3 is going to be like
Crash Bandicoot 1 as good as Crash Bandicoot 2? No.
Just do what we do. Do the Street Fighter or the Street Fighter Tekken motif. Just go S plus. We're just going to have to like introduce
gets too complicated.
One-off special editions. That's you're only allowed to get one per lifetime.
Yeah, so let's wrap this up to seeing the recording time. This has went on a lot longer than I anticipated. So you give Crash Bandicoot OG S tier, remake A tier. I've given both versions an A tier. So great games all around.
Solid.
But let's wrap this up, mate. And that is it, Tomahawk. Another Game of the Month episode all wrapped up. But as you know, as regular listeners know, those calendar pages keep on turning. And that means there's going to be a March Game of the Month. And we are keeping it OG. We're keeping it PlayStation 1. March's Game of the Month is going to be the original Resident Evil.
So excited. I've been doing a deep prep of this one. I am like, can't wait to talk about this one. We are tying it in, obviously. At time of record, Resident Evil Requiem will be about a week out from being released. There are copies in the wild, so I believe.
Yeah, it leaked, yeah.
Capcom have put out a spoil it and we will destroy you.
Yeah.
So tying in with the 30th year of this glorious franchise.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about we're going to talk about the Nexus of
I can't wait.
Resident Evil.
I can't wait. One of my favorite Game of the Month episodes I've ever recorded was last year's March, I think, was Resident Evil 3 with Evan Saba. So, yeah, I know I also realized I said the OG Resident Evil, but we're actually going to be reviewing the director's cut of Resident Evil 1 because that's the one that's available on PlayStation Plus until Sony give us the original version as well. But yeah, that's next month's.
Fun, more synergy on that one. Should we tie in all the records tie in by the time that episode releases, it'll be within like a couple of days of like the anniversary, so we will be pretty much bang on for synergy for that release. We'll probably be about a month off from Requiem's release date at least anyway, but we're not talking about Requiem, we're talking about OG Resident Evil 1, where it all began in the Spencer Mansion.
Yeah, and that means all we have to do now, Tomahawk, is just do a little bit of housekeeping. So if you have liked us and you want to give us a wee star review, whatever podcast platform you listen to us on, 1 star to 5, what you think we're worth, that's what we get. If you want to give us a written review, that's even better because that feeds algorithms and tells wherever you're listening to this that more people should hear it. If you are one of the few who listen to us on YouTube, then don't forget to hit that subscribe button, hit that little bell icon and leave us a little comment. Where would you put Crash Bandicoot on the High Scores, High Stakes tier list? And why? Tell us that. And if 1 hour-ish of High Scores, High Stakes content isn't enough to fill your week, then why not go to highscoreshighstakes.com, where there you can get written articles on every episode we've ever done, little mini reviews of every challenge game we've ever done, and even some opinion stuff there as well. And with all of that being said, Tomahawk, there is nothing left to say except I've been Mr. Luvva Luvva. This has been High Scores, High Stakes Game of the Month Club. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next month. Love y'all. Bye.